Hello everybody and welcome back to Doctor Who, the classic series Action Figures A History. We're going to be picking up from where I last left off, taking a look at the last releases of 2010, the action figures and collector sets released during the winter months. This period does in fact see some of the most highly sought after action figure collector sets that have been released within the series so far, and once again have lots of variety, from your Daleks and Doctor variants, as well as a brand new companion and Cybermen. As I mentioned within the previous episode, the series is now back on a more permanent basis. The series is in fact going to be uploaded every single fortnight on a Friday, right into 2021. So make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss an episode, and do of course stay tuned for further Doctor Who content every single week. In this episode we're going to be taking a look at the Remembrance of the Daleks 4-pack collector set, one of my personal favourites, the Season 18 4th Doctor, packaged alongside a suspiciously new series looking K9, and very excitingly, our first ever classic series humanoid companion being the 6th Doctor companion Perry, as portrayed by Nicola Bryant, alongside Syl, as portrayed by Nabil Shaban. So you may recall that when I was taking a look at the San Diego Comic-Con 2010 releases of the 5th Doctor Regenerated, as seen in Castrovalva, I did of course say it would only be a matter of time before we see a Season 18 4th Doctor, and that time has now of course came, as here we have said Season 18 4th Doctor. Now this set is the 4th Doctor and K9, apparently as seen throughout the story Warrior's Gate from Season 18, and is a very special set to me, because of course if you've been watching this channel for a number of years, this is the first ever product that I reviewed on the Host Productions way back in late December 2010. Therefore, as a part of this series, we are very nearly up to the point of taking a look at all of the figures that came out prior to the creation of this channel. So to be honest, this channel is pretty old, and I'm very proud of it, but this set, as I say, always remains a very special one to me, even though that looking at it, it's not that exciting, but it's probably actually one of the rarer ones that have been released over the years. So firstly, taking a look at K9, this is an absolute cheat. It is just the new series K9 sculpt that has been repackaged with a 4th Doctor figure, which is a shame, because of course in recent years we have seen another version of K9 released in the classic series colours, and it would have been very easy to do back in the day, but they just didn't do it, and for that reason we just have a new series K9 plonked with a 4th Doctor figure. It is a much more of a silvery blue, which is inaccurate. Of course the classic series K9 is a lot more darker in its colour scheme. We have K9 at the side, the collar as per usual, the little tail at the back which is made of a rather flexible plastic to ensure that it doesn't snap. As per usual, this panel does of course also pop off to reveal a little bit of circuitry on the inside, and then of course around the very back, if we just pop that back on, it's a little bit fiddly. On the very back we do have the panel, once again, which I do believe in the TV show was a screen that was used in his first ever story, and then of course we have the head as well, which is just your regular design, once again completely the wrong colour. Giving a quick comparison to the later release of the classic series K9 as a part of the B&M exclusive series, I just don't understand why character didn't do this in the first place. It would just be so easy to do. It only requires a little bit of recolouring, but no, they just didn't. But hey, it's a figure from 2010, I'm getting a little bit annoyed about it, but I probably shouldn't, because it's packaged with a lovely 4th Doctor figure in a lovely costume, as created by June Hudson. Due to Tom Baker being in the role as the 4th Doctor for around 7 years, naturally we did see him age a little bit on screen, therefore Character Options have created a brand new head sculpt to reflect a little bit of that aging, which is a really nice design. Once again, a really lovely representation of Tom Baker, and it does look quite a lot like him. There isn't really any lazy paint apps on this, the eyes are nicely painted, both looking in the right direction, the lips are quite natural looking, and the skin tone itself is also pretty nice. However, However, the main attraction is of course within the hair sculpt, which is a little bit longer and a little bit wilder, and does also have a few additional paint apps to reflect once again the ageing that he did of course experience throughout his time on Doctor Who. So there is a rather lovely grey highlight that has been given to this to really emphasise the detail and bring it out rather well, and much like the 5th Doctor release that did of course come out earlier in 2010, if you remove the scarf there is a little bit of a gap between the hair and of course the shoulders to of course fit the sculpting of the scarf, which is a little bit of a shame. However, it couldn't really be avoided. Sculpt has of course seen a number of different releases over the years, including a re-release of this exact figure within the 13 Doctors collector set, however with a heavily revised colour palette. Moving further down the figure to take a look at the costume, once again this is exactly the same to the 5th Doctor Regenerated release. A really lovely scarf that has a rather nice range of colour on there, including burgundy, some pinks and a little bit of purple with tassels at the very bottom. And then of course taking this off to take a look at the coat underneath. Once again we have the darker, glossier section of the trench coat at the very top, along with a few buttons that have been nicely painted, and the general burgundy design overall. We have the inclusion of the baggy white shirt underneath, however sadly the collars have been tucked underneath the trench coat itself to hide the question marks, because they just didn't want to include those on this figure for some reason. And then much like the previous releases, we do have the trousers along with the boots at the very bottom as well that have been rather nicely painted. Now unlike the 5th Doctor Regenerated, due to this being a regular season 18 4th Doctor from Warrior's Gate, the weathering and grass stains on the very back have now been removed and it is just a standard clean burgundy. So overall, a really lovely figure variation of the 4th Doctor, and I'm glad to have this costume in the collection, considering that it is one of my personal favourites, not only for the 4th Doctor, but as a Doctor costume of all time. I really love the colour palette, and it's just a nice range of different purples and burgundies, and everything about it I just kind of like. I would willingly wear this costume as a day-to-day outfit myself, which I kind of do on a daily basis anyway, because I have a burgundy trench coat. But let's not go into that, because I'm just a bit of a sad human being. Travelling back into the wonderful world of 6C for another Forbidden Planet exclusive 2-pack, this time dedicated to the Season 22 opening story, Attack of the Cybermen. Now as Forbidden Planet exclusive sets go, this one is a little bit of a lazy one, it has to be said, because the Cyberman is just a re-release of the Earthshock Cyberman, quite obviously painted in a different colour, and this version of the 6th Doctor is the one I've seen from Wave 1, and it is virtually exactly the same. And I think it would have been nice if maybe if they left behind the Attack of the Cybermen theme of the set and packaged a 6th Doctor from another story with exactly the same sculpt, just another painted waistcoat, maybe the pink and reddish waistcoat from what I believe appeared in Trial of a Time Lord, or maybe even just another waistcoat from another story, just to give some variation. Or if you were to be incredibly adventurous, get rid of the 6th Doctor figure entirely, and maybe even package a wonderful Cryon in there, because I did quite like the Cryons. As weird as they were quite a cool costume, and it would have been nice to see them in action figure form. That said though, however, even though this is just a direct re-release of the 6th Doctor, that doesn't change the fact that this is still a really lovely figure, and they've really nicely scaled down the 6th Doctor's coat into the 5-inch scale, which has to be said is probably quite a challenge. And other than that, the likeness is lovely, the coat is lovely, the costume is lovely, and everything about the figure is lovely, and thankfully you can pick one up online for quite cheap due to the amount of times that it has been released. Something that is new about the figure though, however, is the accessory that it comes with. This time round the sonic lance has been removed and it has been replaced by this tracking device that the 6th Doctor uses in the first part of Attack of the Cybermen, which fair enough has a few nice dials on and a few nice paint apps and does certainly look like what is seen within the actual story. So it's nice to have Colin hold something else other than just a sonic lance, which didn't really appear too much within the series anyway. The second half of the set is of course the Rogue Cyberman, or Stealth Cyberman, whatever you want to call it, which is basically the Earthshock sculpt, just repainted in darker colours, mainly black, with a few silver highlights in there. So the sculpt is exactly the same, really lovely, really impressive, although some of those details that are seen on the Earthshock Cyberman are generally a little bit lost on this figure, due to it being a little bit more dark and mysterious, especially around the head. It's just one block colour, other than the visor of the mouthpiece, which is still present, so that's looks nice. The chest unit is also exactly the same, just black this time round, and the actual boiler suit itself is also black. However, it has been given a silver wash to really highlight some of those piping designs and mesh designs that are seen on the original figure, which I'm glad that has been done because it makes the figure look a little bit more interesting. At the very bottom we do also have the inclusion of the moon boots as seen on the Earthshock Cybermen, would of course later be replaced in the second Attack of the Cybermen Forbidden Planet exclusive set, which has brand new lace-up shoes, but for now this one will do, I suppose. Much like the Earthshock Cyberman, this figure does come with your regular Cyberman gun. However, much like the figure itself, this has received a brand new colour palette of paint apps. The silver has now been removed entirely and replaced by a much more bronzish colour, and the red section in the top half does remain still present. Nice inclusion and can be displayed nicely with the figure. But overall, a okay set. I think it is a very similar situation to the 4th Doctor and K9 from Warrior's Gate, where a lot of cheap shortcuts have been taken at this point in order to make the set a reality, and especially considering that we got a second Attack of the Cybermen 2-pack a few years after the release of this set. It may have been nice to have a 4-pack for Attack of the Cybermen, as opposed to 2 separate 2-pack releases, which don't include a Cryon. I just want a Cryon, please give me a Cryon. Or even the Cyber Controller from this story, which is also rather unique and different design. So far, the Classic Series line has done a very good job to give us the vast majority of Cybermen designs throughout the Classic Series era of Doctor Who. We had the original Cybermen wave in the very early days of the Classic Series line, giving us the majority of designs from the 60s era of the show, and then we had the Forbidden Planet exclusives and the general wave releases covering the 80s Cybermen design. However, there was one particular Cyberman, the only ever Cyberman to go up against the 4th Doctor, and that is of course in Revenge of the Cybermen. So here we have a 3-pack of 3 Cybermen from said story, packaged alongside a Cybermat. Once again in a very similar format to the Silver Nemesis set, where we just have Cybermen, making it absolutely perfect for army building. Now I have a little bit of a prediction that I think that in maybe next year or the year after, we will see probably a Trooper Cyberman from Revenge of the Cybermen released once more as a part of the B&M sets, alongside a Harry Sullivan in his blue blazer suit, and a new variant of Sarah Jane in like her combatish gear, also seen in Genesis of the Daleks as a part of the 3-pack sets that are normally released as a part of that series. That is one of my predictions at least. However, for now, these figures have only ever been released as a part of this 3-pack. The Revenge of the Cybermen helmets are a very unusual combination of the Invasion Cyberman, the Wheel in Space Cyberman, and almost the later designs of Cybermen that we would see within the 80s era of the show. So we have the teardrop design once again, the slit mouth, we have the ridges on the side of the helmet which will become more prominent on the Earthshock Cyberman, and we have the piping around the side of the face as well. There's been given a really lovely texture, as you can see. Now a big plus of this and bonus points is that this can actually be removed, as you can see. So now you have a head that could be from Van Statten's museum, as seen throughout the new series Christopher Eccleston episode Dalek. As for the costume itself, it is once again following a very similar theme, where it is a bit of a mishmash between the Invasion design and the Tomb of the Cybermen design almost, where we have this rather bulky looking bodysuit that has been fully painted silver. We have some ridges at the sides of the limbs here, including the piping going down the side, and this piping does also go to the central unit here, which looks very 60s in its design. So we have this black panel along with other little control units in the side as well, and then also to the legs we have a further continuation of just that regular silver, that ridge design of piping, and the regular shoes at the very bottom. I think that this costume overall maybe needs a bit of creasing in it or something like that, or just something on the boiler suit to make it look more exciting. On the back of the design it does get a little bit more interesting, as we have almost this hunchback here, where we have this little unit at the very back along with these little control cords coming around the side as well, along with a few additional bits of creasing, which is not really seen on any other version of Cyberman in this design, and likewise for the back it's exactly the same and just pretty silver. I also love when the action figures recreate the little parts of the actual costume that probably you weren't meant to see, but here it is anyway. We have the little screw on the very back panel that does of course actually put in the person who is operating the Cyberman costume, so it's nice that they've included that, very much like how on the Tomb Cybermen they included the breathing holes on the sides of the face. And due to the other Cybermen following exactly the same sculpt, here is the Cyber Leader's head, which is the only paint app difference on the other figures, which is fairly nice. I think it once again continues the theme that we would later see in the 80s era of the show, where the leader would have the black handlebars. However, this one is much more exaggerated, as the black does of course also stretch around to the top half of the helmet. This has been painted rather well, however it has slightly missed the sculpt on the side here, which is a little bit of a shame, but if you are talented with paint and you have that issue, you could probably patch that up. However, I don't really have the confidence to, because knowing my look, I'll probably slip and completely ruin the figure. Also, one of the plus points of having a 3-pack is that from what I can remember of Revenge of the Cybermen, on the control unit that they have within the cyber ship in the story, there is the cyber leader commanding, and there is the 2 Cybermen actually at the control desk, so it kind of works to have a 3-pack as opposed to a 2-pack. And to finish off the Revenge of the Cybermen set, we have the inclusion of a Cybermat accessory, very much like how the original Tomb Cyberman included some Cybermats as well. However, this one is much bigger in design, as you can see. It's just been painted in a regular silver colour, with a few panels here and there towards the back and this main beak section at the top. This has been given a little bit of a paint app, as you can see, a bit of a red splodge of paint there. However, the most interesting part of the sculpt is at the very bottom, where we have the inclusion of piping ridge design along with an opened section there, which is very nice indeed, considering that you wouldn't really see that on display. However, it's nice that it has been included anyway, and is a good piece to display alongside the Revenge Cybermen. After a rather busy year of Doctor Who Classic Series action figure releases, we venture into the winter of 2010 in the first of quite a few Dalek 4-packs that we would see added to our collections over the next year or two. Starting out with the one and only Remembrance of the Dalek set, after the previously released Remembrance of the Dalek set with the Imperial Dalek and 7th Doctor. This time round we do in fact have a whole 4 different variations of Dalek, including 2 from the Imperial faction, 2 Daleks from the Renegade faction. Now this set is one of those Classic Series action figure sets that I'm so glad that I got it when I did, because I think this set sold out once and it instantly rocketed up in price, and it has never really gone down since. It's always been one of those sets that has been on a lot of people's bucket lists to buy, and I'm very grateful to have it as a part of my collection. As I said earlier in this series, Remembrance of the Daleks is one of my personal favourite episodes within Doctor Who history, so naturally it is lovely to have not 1 but 4 Daleks as a part of that episode within the action figure format. So firstly, starting out with the Imperial Dalek, which is technically a re-release from the original version, however with a few adjustments to make it more accurate to what is seen within the actual story. So to start off with, the main base sculpt is once again your same design to any other Classic Series Dalek, this time round painted in a rather lovely looking creamish colour. Of course, the rest of the Dalek does feature some brand new additions, first seen on the original Imperial Dalek, including the updated slats that are now just the rectangular sections and the golden bars, so the inclusion of the brand new ear bulbs at the very top, which are now a flat design. And there is of course also this unusual hexagonal section in the very middle of the weaponry. The first of the changes to make this Dalek a little bit more accurate to the on-screen prop is the change in the Eyestock, and the first ever time that this shrunken variation of Eyestock was seen on a Classic Series Dalek. Once again featuring the more separated out discs, and of course at the very end we get the now much smaller Irish section, which has been painted in a gold with the blue tip, much like the previous release, and I think that this smaller Eyestock works very well. The other change for the sake of accuracy is a brand new manipulator arm. This time round it has been sculpted slightly differently to your regular Dalek that is normally just a half-circle spherical shape. This time round it's more like a plunger in a more funnel design with a few ridges towards the very side, including these little delves at either edge as well. This is in fact a little bit more flimsy compared to your usual manipulator arm. As you can see, that is a little bit worrying, not going to lie. I've never noticed how flimsy it is until now, so I'm not going to be touching that. But yeah, it's a bit more thinner to the others as well. That may be accurate, but for the sake of accuracy it may also be a little bit weaker. It may snap if you drop it, so the last thing you want to do is snap it. And much like how they did within the actual story, summoning on the mighty special weapons Dalek in all of its tank glory, for quite a while this was the main selling point of the Remembrance of the Dalek set, and made a lot of people wish that the set was re-released, due to this Dalek being only ever released once, up until the second wave of sound effects Daleks, which did finally see this sculpt released once more, just with the additional sound effects added. Now, there is something about this Dalek that looks absolutely beautiful. I think the general sculpt overall makes this product not look like plastic. I think it looks incredibly powerful and almost like a scaled down version of the prop as seen within the TV show. The fender of the Dalek is exactly the same sculpt to that of your usual Imperial Dalek, and in fact every other Dalek pretty much within this set. However, this time round, instead of being painted white, it is now being painted gold, with a brown weathering effect added over the top. The skirt itself is also exactly the same sculpt, even though it looks a little bit different. Once again, we have the golden spherical orbs, which have been nicely painted. However, in between this, we do have some additional bits of weathering, which is a little bit over the top, it must be said. It does look like artificial weathering and not particularly too natural. However, the actual skirt itself has also been given a nice weathering effect, making it look a lot more dirty on the actual colour itself as opposed to your usual cream coloured Dalek, which is a nice effect. And then of course, moving above this, we have a brand new sculpt entirely, which looks incredibly cool indeed. Starting off with this middle section, once again we get some lovely rivets on this. It looks very familiar to the fender at the bottom, with the same weathering effect applied over the top. In the very middle section, we do also get the one big blaster cannon piece, which is one cased within this golden section, which has additionally got some more panels on, along with additional bits of weathering. The cannon itself does look quite cool. It's just one solid sculpt with one black paint tap and a few additional paint taps over the top of this. For the most part, it does pretty much only look black, and it would have been maybe nice to see a few scratches and things added to the top of this to kind of keep up the weathered impression that the rest of the Dalek has. Naturally, this does move up and down as well. The unusual collar section is the artificial weathering does look a little bit unusual, where we have these odd diagonal brush strokes. Doesn't look natural whatsoever. And then of course at the very top, much like a regular tank piece, we have this lookout section with the dome as well, which does look very cool. So yeah, if you get the opportunity to get either this version or just your regular special weapons Dalek in the sound effects range, then I highly recommend it because it does look very cool. So now moving on to the Renegade fraction of Dalek, we have your regular Scout or Drone Dalek, which is a slightly more darker grey colour compared to the Imperial Daleks, and is a little bit more traditional 80s Doctor Who, as seen throughout Revelation of the Daleks, as well as Resurrection of the Daleks. Now this sculpt is in fact one that has only been seen on this set, as the additional later versions of Renegade Daleks, especially the one released as a part of the 50th anniversary Toys R Us 2 packs, is quite a lot different from this one, especially around the mesh section. As you can see, borrowing the same sculpt once again from the Imperial Dalek. However, this time round, as opposed to the white and gold slats, this has been replaced by a silver and black, which does make this figure stand out quite a lot when on display, because it is pretty much the only grey Dalek with this design. The rest of the figure overall though, however, is quite similar to any other classic series Dalek really. We have the circular section in the very middle of the weaponry, we have the black orbs at the very bottom. Unusually, this is the only Dalek of the set to have one singular fender that isn't split into the two separate sections. Don't know if this is on purpose or if it's just an accident, but this figure does have your more traditional one seen on the earlier releases from the classic series line. And in a similar way to that of the Imperial Dalek, the Eyestock has in fact been shortened once again. This time round it is in your much more regular traditional classic series Dalek colours, being painted entirely black with the grey discs in the middle, and of course the iris as well at the very front with the black pupil, which is a nice touch. We do also have the ear bulbs at the very top, which are once again your regular Dalek design, with even the inclusion of a black rim around the sides of the dome as well, which is a nice touch. However, as you may see, mine does have a few unusual scratches on, which was a main problem with this set. Very much like the Imperial Dalek, you may have seen that that has a few scratches on as well, and the other Dalek in the set, the Supreme Dalek, also has a bent Eyestock, which, as popular as this set was and as fought after as it is, it's probably one of the worst sets for quality control that the classic series line ever produced. I don't quite know why, but this one, from what I can remember, had a lot of flaws. To the final Dalek of the set is the Renegade Supreme Dalek, the one at the very end of the episode that does that weird spinning thing and the fiery smoke comes out of the side, and I do believe it has been made into a rather popular used GIF. Now this is once again a rather nice colour scheme. The entirety of the Dalek is pretty much a glossy black, which is very effective and makes the figure generally look very smart. The orbs and spherical sections on the lower half of the skirt have been painted silver, which makes them stand out, and the mesh section this time round is the only Dalek of the set to in fact feature your regular mesh design, including the panels with the different rivets and of course your mesh texture in between them, pretty much like all of the other classic series Daleks. The gun is a silver, and unfortunately the barrel section is the part of the figure where the problems lie. As you can see, following up the panels within the barrel section where we have the different lines, the middle section is slightly off, and I do believe that you could probably fix this by taking the Daleks apart and then moving the disc around, but once again I'm a little bit worried to do that and don't want to break the figure. And then of course at the top of the figure we get the dome section, once again in the glossy black, and this time we return back to your regular Eyestock design that is a little bit longer than your regular editions, with the silver discs around the side and the rather large looking people in the very middle to kind of get the impression of what was seen in the actual story. However, it just uses the regular Dalek Eyestock and they've kind of painted over it. At the top you do also get your regular ear bulbs, this time round in a translucent yellowy colour. Tilting the Dalek onto the side as well, as I mentioned earlier about the quality control issue with the Eyestocks, it looks like it is looking forward right now. However, if I tilted the Eyestock down to where it would normally be looking forward, it is in fact completely bent down and he looks a little bit sad about life. There was a little bit of a wire or elastic band that kind of kept the Eyestocks in place, and as a result the plastic was kind of bent down in the box, which is very annoying. Thankfully most of my other Daleks are absolutely fine, but this one has seen better days when it comes to the Eyestock area. So overall, for the Remembrance of the Daleks 4-figure set, if you were a fan of Daleks, then this set was pretty much the perfect Christmas present for you, featuring 4 completely different colour schemes of Dalek, and certainly a very promising start to the Doctor Who Dalek 4-packs that we would see a little bit more of in the future releases of the classic series line. And naturally, if you get the opportunity to buy this set for, again, under 3 digits at minimum, then jump at the opportunity, because it is one of the most collectible that the classic series line has ever produced. To coincide with the release of the Remembrance of the Daleks 4-pack set, Forbidden Planet in fact released the Sylvester Mccoy figure from the Remembrance of the Daleks previous set once more. However, this time round a single carded edition for I do believe around £15. This 7th Doctor figure is identical to the one previously released alongside the Imperial Dalek a few months previous, so if you would like to see more of this figure, check out the previous part within this series. The final Forbidden Planet exclusive figure set release for 2010 is another milestone within the Doctor Who Classic Series action figure line, seeing the release of the first ever Classic Series companion, and it is none other than Perry, as played by Nicola Bryant from the 6th Doctor era. Now, this is nobody's first choice, I think, for a figure release. Certainly not one that I was expecting back in the day. I was very surprised, but also very overjoyed, because naturally, I adore the 6th Doctor era, and being able to have Perry to go alongside the 6th Doctor is a dream come true. I never expected Perry to be released. She's a very random choice, but one that I certainly wasn't arguing with. And of course, this figure is the first of a number of Perry figures that we will see over the next few years. She was packaged alongside another 6th Doctor villain, which is great to see, and in fact one of the best villains of the 80s. It is of course Syl, as played by Nabil Shaban, as he first appeared within Vengeance on Davros, one of the best episodes of season 22. I think that the figure itself certainly has a very good likeness to Nicola Bryant. I especially love the way that they've applied the usual makeup that she would normally wear within the TV show, somewhat accentuated eyebrows and the bright lips, and even the inclusion of the paint taps around the ears to represent the earrings. There is also the sculpt in the hair as well, of the inclusion of the hairband, which you may just be able to see ever so slightly. However, this hasn't been painted, and that is because this figure release was of course created to kind of suit a number of different Perry series from a number of different stories, and the hairband was of course present within the Attack of the Cybermen, so chances are we'll probably see an Attack of the Cybermen variant at some point, which we did of course see. Moving down the figure, we have one of her jumpsuits, of course, the bright cyan blue one this time round. A few rather nice details on this. Of course, the main base colour is blue, however we do have a few creases. We have the shorts as well with the same colour, and the inclusion of the red band of the belt as well, and even the small detailing of the keyring at the side, which has been painted yellow. Other than that, we just have the legs, and then of course the small high heels at the very bottom. And it was lovely to be able to display Perry alongside the 6th Doctor, completing our first ever TARDIS team within the classic series. And of course Perry was packaged with Syl, or whatever he does throughout the actual story. Syl is a very unusual creature, and I'm not even going to say what is currently through my head right now, but he looks like a talking He has obviously his little communicator device on the side, which has been painted with a silver paint app, and the rest of the figure is just in murky brown with a number of different details, including the tail at the very bottom here, bent up a little bit, the arms as well, which don't move. This is just all one solid figure, and a very good likeness to what is Syl as well, including several veins around the face, the unusual looking Mohican section at the top, some rather nice and piercing looking eyes, and of course the tongue sticking out as well, which is a very cool touch. He didn't really do this throughout the actual story, but of course Syl is removable from its actual tank, and a really cool little idea is that even on the tank itself there is almost a smear mark from where Syl would sit on his little chair, which is oddly cool but oddly gross at the same time. The entirety of Syl's tank is basically just a die-cast piece, meaning that it is hollow on the inside, and its vast majority is basically just painted in a grey colour. On the sides of this we do have the detailing of a small little section of the technical stuff that do of course go on within his little control tank unit, and the same for the back as well, with what looks like a bit of a keyboard, and a few additional paint apps on the side as well, where we have another control panel section. On the very front we do get this appearance of glass. I have the impression of the water that is underneath Syl's tank almost, with a few little bubbles and things running up the tank, and a control panel on the side as well. Looking rather closely underneath Syl's seat, there is even the inclusion of the green goo actually under the panel itself. So as you can see, this is not just a straight area. We do have a few bubbles and things surfacing to create that impression once again. But overall, for what looks like a very simple and easy figure, it actually has quite a lot of minor details. Looking back, this period of the Doctor Who Classic Series action figures was a fairly positive and effective one for me, because we've just had a 4-pack of Remembrance Daleks from one of my personal favourite stories, and now we've got Perry and Syl from another one of my personal favourite Doctor Who stories featuring the 6th Doctor, so a brilliant choice of set and a rather creative one as well. So there we go, that's that. Another episode of Doctor Who, the Classic Series action figures, a history. I hope you have enjoyed it. And that does also conclude all of the Doctor Who Classic Series action figures to be released in the year of 2010. I think it has taken either 2 or 2.5 episodes to showcase all of the action figures that were released within that 1 year, which I think goes to show how popular and brilliant this period was within the line for variety and many different action figures featuring lots of different variants of Dalek, lots of different Doctor costume, Cyberman variants, the debut of the companions within the line as well of K9 and Perry, and of course the debut of the Master within the series as well, featuring Roger Delgado as well as Anthony Ainley. However, just because it is the end of the year 2010, that does not mean that this series is over. Far from it, as we delve into the year 2011, which starts off with even more Dalek variants, the introduction of Davros to the series, and of course some Sontarans accompanied with Sontaran pods. But that is of course all for the next episode as a part of this series. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it, and do of course stay tuned for more episodes as a part of this series, as well as more Doctor Who content every single week on The Host Productions. So thanks for watching, I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.